Up, guys? It's Michael from Starteryou, and we're here back with our second episode of our career hustle talk show, if you want to call it. But yeah, so today we got our second guest. He's also a student, just like the first one was, and this guy is a DJ, and he does it as kind of like a side hustle while also being a student. I'll let him talk more about it than me, but in short, that's what he does. And yeah, we have some future episodes planned. We have some blue collar workers coming on, some other students who are in the car business. I think a couple of e-commerce guys as well that I'm talking to, and yeah. So without further ado, let's get this started up and introduce our guest. His name is Ferris. Hey, Ferris, you there? You turn on your camera.
Yeah, what's good? Just posting it to Instagram. But my people stick on.
Let me raise you. Okay. Sure, everything's good. It's good. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Unless you want to wait for anyone, but I guess they'll come in as you go. And again, this is just we'll just start with simple intros anyway. Okay, so tell us about yourself. So where you go to school, what you're studying, what you've been up to.
Sure. So my name's Ferris. I go by Day Off. Hold on, let me mute this straight.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry. I go to SMU currently, but I've also gone to USC in California. I kind of go to two schools right now, but that's a story for another time. I currently DJ on the side, and I'm trying to make a career out of it, but it's a very long and lengthy process, and we can talk about that as we get into this. Yeah, I'm a junior. I'm studying political science, and yeah, I don't know. Is that good?
Yeah, that's plenty. Okay, and how did you get into DJing? Was it a hobby first, or how did the origin start?
So I kind of got into DJing a while ago. I picked up DJing during pre-COVID, and then during COVID, I started getting lessons from this mobile DJ I hired to come teach me in my backyard, and kind of from there, I've just been doing it ever since. We can talk about my whole career if you want. That's kind of how I started.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So what was these are just some intro questions. What was your first paid gig, and how did that kind of come about?
First paid gig was with the mobile DJ. So after he kind of taught me what to do, he kind of hired me onto his company. So one of my first paid gigs was a pretty big wedding in Long Island, funny enough. What was the second part of that question?
How did it come about? Like, how did you get in touch with the person?
He told me to come shadow him, and I ended up doing most of the DJing while he emceed. Because these were COVID weddings, so we had to keep staff at a minimum. So that's kind of how I got my first paid gig, which is somewhat unconventional.
You want to share how much it was for and how long it lasted?
The wedding, we did the reception. I think I made $500 off that one, especially for being a brand new DJ. That's a lot of money. But
what year was it?
This was 2020, I think. Yeah, this was right in the middle of COVID. So this wedding was like in somebody they built this like tent at their house, and they had the whole thing at their house in Long Island. And I don't know how long it lasted, like 7 to 10, 6 to 10, something like that.
Okay, and how many gigs do you typically play in a month on average?
In a month?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm probably doing probably 10, 15, 20 a month right now. I've slowed down this couple of coming weeks because of finals, but the last few months I've been doing 3-4 gigs a week pretty consistently in Dallas.
Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about getting starting process. So what kind of gear did you start with? And was it expensive? And yes, there's chatters who say stupid things.
Anyways, what did I start on? Yeah, we could talk about that. So I started on a deck called the DDJ SB3. You can pull a picture up if you want it. It's very similar to what they use now. It was what everyone starts out on, just a small, like $200 deck. And I used that for about a year and a half, 2 years till I felt. No, that's not. But that's okay. No, that's to use in the club. You can just Google it's DDJ SB3. And so I kind of used that till I really felt like I was absolutely maximizing the capacity of what those little boards can handle. You can technically do anything on them that you could on what you just showed, but it becomes very difficult, and when you upgrade equipment, it becomes a lot simpler, and there's a lot more stuff you get on a physical board. So as you go, I started on the SB3. I had the guy who taught me, yeah, there it is. The guy who taught me, he sold me a couple of his old big speakers that you use for outdoor venues and stuff, like big stuff. And that's kind of what I started on, and then I slowly started to build up equipment for mobile DJing, and then I eventually upgraded the board about a year and a half later to what I use now.
Wow, so you used that actually for a while, okay.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's a pretty common thing happening now, which I don't agree with, is people tend to upgrade their equipment very quickly to some of the bigger, fancier stuff, and I don't really conform with that idea. Or they just buy the big fancy stuff to start out with, something I would use. And I don't think that's a good idea, especially because all these big boards cost thousands of dollars, and a lot of people, DJing is just a hobby, and they get bored of it in due time. So I always recommend not doing that. But yeah, I don't even know what the question was, but yeah.
You answered it. So did you teach yourself, or did someone kind of mentor you? How was that process like?
Yeah, so we were talking about that earlier, and now I kind of teach people, which is full circle moment, which is pretty funny. I was saying earlier, during COVID, everyone was home in New York, especially with nothing to do. So I hired a mobile DJ to come teach me, and we'd set up in my backyard, and we would just practice out there, and he would come and teach me how to DJ and how to mix and stuff like that. And then I just would go, I'd practice during COVID because we had a lot of free time, and that's kind of how it did. And now, kind of full circle, like I was saying, is that I am now teaching people online how to DJ for weddings, actually.
And where did you find him?
Which guy? The guy I'm teaching, the guy I found to teach me.
The guy you found to teach you, the first guy?
Craigslist, funny enough.
I can't believe that site's actually used for useful things.
Yeah.
Okay, and you kind of answered the question, what software and hardware to use now. I guess software is kind of different, right? We can talk a little about
for
that.
Software, we could talk about the software. So, there's really two main softwares you can use. Rekordbox and Serato are like the two industry standards, and both people like have this big like life or death debate about the two programs. To be honest, they're very similar. I use both because the deck my laptop is sitting on top of right now uses Serato, but for the club standard stuff like I sent you,
yeah. You good?
Anyways, I don't know. I was just reading that chat. I don't know what that was. The industry standard stuff, you have to use Rekordbox because you run on a USB, like this one. This USB is, but whatever. So that one you have to use that because that program exports the software you need to plug into the the decks you showed. Um, so I have both. I have massive libraries, my same massive libraries in both programs, and I just kind of flip back and forth. I've got it pretty organized. It's actually a mess, but it's an organized mess. Especially when you're dealing with like 20, 30,000 songs, which I think is what I'm up to now.
Wow.
So you kind of use both. There's other programs to use like Tractor and I don't remember what the other one's called, but those aren't the most common ones, and people don't really use those. Popular. They're not very popular.
Yeah. And how do you find gigs, or how do gigs find you now, basically?
Both. I love the grind, so I constantly. Your biggest friend, and everyone will tell you this, and it's actually true, is the DMs. I send so many DMs a day to clubs and promoters and other famous DJs, sending out my music and stuff like that to just get my name out there. So I have fortunately become into a position now that I've done so many gigs in Dallas. I'm pretty decently known in the city, at least. So they do kind of call me for stuff, but doesn't mean I just stop in any way, shape, or form reaching out. I still reach out every day for sorts of different opportunities, and then they also reach out to me. So it's a push pull. Sometimes they reach out to me, sometimes I reach out to them. I don't know. It's kind of both.
And any tips for someone trying to book their first party or club gig, or even where to start? Kind of what's the best event to do when you're first starting out?
Best event? I mean, I always recommend starting with like your own event. I don't personally, I don't do my own events because it's a very big rabbit hole that I don't want to go down.
No.
But I think what a lot of people do is when they start is they throw a party at their house or something like that, or they rent a small venue. But usually it's a house party or a pre-game or something like that, and they just invite their friends over and they do some mixing, and that's kind of how those first gigs kind of go. And from there, you really start to improve your craft if you're serious about it, and then you can start reaching out to places, and it kind of goes from there. That answers the question.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into my next one. We're using social media. Kind of, do you use, or what is the impact of using social media or website to promote yourself, and how useful would you say that is?
Sure, we can talk about social media. So I am on all the social medias. My two strongest are Instagram and TikTok. They're all wildly different, and a big part of DJing now is social media. It didn't used to be that, and it's unfortunate that it's turned to that, in my opinion. And a lot of other pretty substantial DJs will say the same, because it should be about the music, not about how many followers you have. But that's kind of what it's turned to.
Mm.
So I post every single day on TikTok, and I go live every night. Almost, I try. It's going live's a lot harder than posting. I stream every single night. I try to on TikTok. And then I post reels about once every 3 days on Instagram. I take my best TikToks. TikTok is a good platform. I'm giving out all the secrets right now. TikTok's yeah, you can pull up some of my TikToks. This is a great platform to test stuff. TikTok is very forgiving when it comes to views and stuff. So if it works, it'll work very well. If it doesn't work, it just won't. So you can test, and there's no punishment on TikTok for uploading as much as you want. Where it comes to Instagram Reels, it's a little more unforgiving, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I test a lot of stuff on TikTok with content, and then I take those best ones and I put them on my Instagram, and that's kind of how I monitor those two. As for YouTube, I try and post a set once a week on a full set. If you want, you could probably show my YouTube. I have another one I gotta edit. I've been slacking. I know there's a couple. I haven't posted in a couple weeks, but
that's almost a full-time job in itself, right? Just the social media editing and posting side of it.
Yeah, no, the social. There is a TikTok about that where I talk about that you can't just be, if you want to be a serious DJ, you can't just be a DJ anymore. You have to be about 20 different things, and it includes editing your own video. I edit all my own videos because God knows I can't afford an editor. I can barely afford the camera guy with some of these gigs that pay now. And so so you have to be an editor. You have to film. I set up. If you look at some of my YouTube videos, all those camera shots I set up on my own. The only ones that are moving, I just make my roommate, or I have a camera guy who's shooting that fourth angle of something moving. And on top of that, you also have to know how to produce. You have to be a producer in this day and age. You can't just be a DJ anymore. So it's kind of you have to wear many hats now when it comes to DJing. It's not just show up and play music anymore.
Yeah, I saw that in that video. There was different camera, like it was a wide shot towards the end, yeah, like something like this.
Yeah, so as you can see, yeah, this is a pretty good example. This is one of my more favorite sets I've done recently. And I had 3 different camera GoPros set up, stagnant. You can kind of see 2 in that picture right there. And then the one behind it, obviously. And then I also had a camera guy that night who was walking around, as you can see in that other angle. Yeah, that's one of the GoPros. That's the camera guy. That's the second GoPro. And then you can see the third one in the bottom of that.
Oh yeah, there it is.
And so somebody's got to edit all that together, and that would be me. I'm that guy.
And these are all your equipment, right? Nothing's borrowed or rented from the places you go to? Nothing supplied is what I'm saying. Yeah.
For the camera equipment? Yeah. I have the whole stack of GoPros sitting right over there. But the DJ equipment, that's club standard, so that comes at the club.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of the performance of when you're on stage and things like that. So how do you read a crowd and adjust your set if you do that?
House music? Yeah, I'm a house music DJ. Reading a crowd. Okay, so this is a big thing nowadays that a lot of DJs don't understand. And it's only something you will understand with time. And I was fortunate enough to learn from a mobile DJ who did weddings. And when you do weddings, people who do weddings and understand that you have to read the crowd, because if the wedding people don't like it, they're not going to dance, and you have to keep them dancing. That's what you get paid to do. And some people don't understand that anymore. And they just play exactly what they want. And if the crowd hates it, they don't care, because they're getting paid anyways. And I don't see it like that. I enjoy reading the crowd. I think it's fun. I've gotten it down to kind of a science at this point. That's an old photo. I don't even know where you got that one. Did I send that to you?
Probably.
That's a very, very old photo. What was I saying? So yeah, reading a crowd, it's simple, but it's not. When you do DJing for long enough, you'll know what songs work exactly every time without question. And I have playlists of those kinds of songs, and sometimes I'll just burn through them at events with the younger generations, because their brains are pretty fried at this point, so they only have the attention span of so long, which is the biggest struggle with DJing now, is people's attention spans is very short. So you have to be mixing through a lot of songs a night now, especially at some of the clubs I do, where it's a lot of just the college kids. I have to bang through. In the 4 hours, I'm through 300-400 songs at least. So reading a crowd is definitely a learned skill. It just takes time. But you eventually start to figure out, oh, this song will be perfect here, and you'll be running through your brain. And I run through my brain, and sometimes the song will just come to my head and be like, yeah, that's the next song that'll work perfect. Or I'm flipping through songs in my playlist and just seeing like what will sound good next, and usually I'm picking correctly, but sometimes you don't.
And that was even my next question, because you've done like frat parties and college parties. Like, how different is that to like the bars or the people who are much older at the actual events?
Well, I'm not gonna say I've done it all, but I've done a pretty decent amount of different types of DJing gigs, at least. The frat scene is very difficult, in my opinion. It's one of the more hard ones. It's up there with the wedding stuff, because the frat kids and the wedding people all want to hear a lot of songs in a short amount of time, especially the wedding people. They're a little more lenient, because they're usually older and more patient, I guess, and their brains aren't as fried. But the frat kids, it's brutal, because if they don't care, they'll leave within 30 seconds if they don't hear a song they like. So you're really mixing through a lot of stuff, and it becomes difficult for sure. But once you do it enough times, I've kind of created a perfect, what I call a perfect playlist for the fraternity stuff, and it's songs I know 100% work with all the fraternity people, no matter
Nice.
what.
You just recycle and reuse it.
Yeah, I switch it up obviously, but
Yeah,
some version of that.
it's like a framework. Okay. What's your wildest or most memorable gig story so far? While also keeping it pretty PG.
Um, I've definitely done some fascinating not PG gigs for sure. Um, some ones I've definitely had fun with are the ones I posted on YouTube for sure. The Koba video, which was that clip you were just showing, that was one of my favorites I've done recently, as well as the sunset sessions. Those were kind of my two favorites recently. Yeah, that one. That one was really particularly fun because I was the opening slot. Oh, and the truck one. I forgot about the truck video. We could talk about the truck video in a sec. Um, the Koba one was definitely a fun one for sure because I don't know who that is, but I guess the Koba video is fun because I was the opening set, but it's the After Hours Club, and this was also the grand opening for the After Hours Club. So there was a lot of hype, and I don't know people in the chat or you know who Mal P is. He's a pretty famous DJ at this point. He was doing the big famous club in Dallas that they just built, and so I was running around at the other clubs, telling everybody that Mal P was coming to this grand opening and he was going to be DJing. So I created this massive crowd. Yeah, that guy. Of which the line was so far down the street, it was absurd. I couldn't believe it. And the club video is fascinating for sure because I opened, which meant there was nobody there at 2 a.m. And by the end of that 45-minute set, you can kind of see it in that clip. The room is packed. And yeah, I mean, you can definitely see in this clip. This was definitely towards the end. The room is pretty full for 45 minutes of me DJing.
Yeah.
So that set was definitely one of my four favorites. And then the most recent one we did, which was the one in the back of the pickup truck, that one was just pretty funny.
Yeah, we
It
can go
was
ahead
a
and talk
pretty
about that.
funny idea.
I have this video. You want to talk about it while it's playing?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I was in Miami. This was all a marketing scheme, is what I'm gonna call it. So I had spring break the week before Miami Music Week, and if you're in the industry, Miami Music Week is the biggest thing for DJs. It's like the Super Bowl for DJs. Everyone and their mother is there, but my spring break was the week before, and I had school the week after. So what we did is we shot all these videos the week before, and then I didn't post them till the week after, pretending like I was there for Miami Music Week to help with to gain more viewers and stuff like that. But this set we came up with on a whim. We were driving around Miami looking for spots to shoot. As you can see on my YouTube, there's a couple different spots we picked. And then we came up with this idea. I was like, why don't I just get in the back of the truck and we start filming? So that's kind of what we did here. The setup is extremely scuffed in the video, as you can see. The board isn't being held down. The table, we had one ratchet strap because we started this video at like 10 o'clock at night in the middle of Miami.
Gosh.
So we decided to just drive around Miami, filming it. We were going through Brickell and stuff, and it did pretty well, honestly. We got some videos from people who were just like filming me on the side of the road. We posted those, and the clips did pretty well. That's in the middle of downtown Brickell. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it on like a weekend because we didn't have the board, and it wasn't we couldn't do it. So we did it during the middle of the week, is why the video isn't like all the streets aren't packed. I also think if we would have done it during the weekend when the streets are packed, we probably would have gotten in trouble with the police. But the police didn't seem to care when we did this. You can see it in some of the video. We drive by a bunch of cops and they're just sort of like looking at us. So yeah, that was definitely one of the more fun sets. Those are some of the more fun sets we've done.
And so we'll talk a little bit about kind of the challenges and lessons that you learned, just quickly. But what's been the hardest part of growing the side hustle? So, we talked about starting it, We talked about what it's like to already be at a level where you're booking consistent gigs, but what's kind of the hardest part of getting from, step 1 to step 2 after you've already started?
Um, it's a grind. People don't really understand how much of a grind it is because they just see the guys at the top and think,
Yeah.
oh, it's super easy. But it's very hard. Nowadays, especially since there's a trillion people who think they're going to be the next famous DJ, and they just fill the internet with terrible content and stuff, and it makes people who really want it, like myself, much harder. We got to work much harder. As for getting to where I am, it's been. Oh, that was the wrong button. As to getting where I am, it's been taken years, I guess, since we've been doing this for. I guess I've been doing this technically for 5 years now.
5 years, yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a grind for sure. I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was something specific that was kind of like the thing that you hate so much about, or it's just the grinding, it's just consistency. That's so annoying.
It's much consistency. You have to be I work on this stuff every day, or I try to. I at least post once a day on TikTok for the very bare minimum, so I can say I did something for DJing every day.
And it's not
Some
even a
days,
full-time job, so that's the crazy part.
no, but it is a full-time job. And people don't understand that for sure. They think it's just some little hobby or gig but it's most definitely a full-time job. And a lot of DJs, that's a very common thing with a lot of DJs, especially producing. Producing takes an insane amount of time, and we can talk about that too. And it's the hardest part of DJing for sure, is producing.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And we'll have your link tree. If you have that on standby, you can paste it in chat. But that's something I'm going to start doing is I'll have a command for every guest. You could just say !guest, and it'll have all their links if they have anything associated with them. But Ferris will post it in the chat right now. And while he's doing that, I'll get the next question. Have you ever had a technical failure mid-show, and how'd you recover?
Yeah, so that happens a lot. That happens a lot for sure.
You're good. The link works.
It happens. It's an inevitable. Hopefully, it's a fixable one. Usually, it is. Most of the time, it's some chick hits the power switch to your extension cable and just shuts everything off, and you're back up and running within a couple seconds. Sometimes it's not that though. Sometimes I've seen stuff in the club where the tables right in front of the DJ booth think it's funny to spray alcohol or champagne everywhere, and it just covers the decks in alcohol. It cooks them, so we have to do hot swaps and stuff like that. But those are more dramatic styles of things. Less crazy stuff is more like making bad transitions or hitting pause by accident. Those are things that happen all the time, and you have to recover. In some ways, I recover. You get on the mic, you just start spewing nonsense. You get the crowd all fired up. You act like the best thing to do with DJing is act like everything's on purpose. You can't pretend. You just have to pretend. You just have to keep going, no matter what. As long as you look like you're having fun, no one will ever notice. That's the big thing with DJing. You could make 100 mistakes, and if only people in the crowd who are DJs will be able to tell. The people who are just there won't tell. So you just gotta go with the flow and pretend like there's no issue ever, and it's all supposed to happen, and no one will ever notice.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to talk a little bit about the picture that's on screen right now and kind of what this is?
Sure. So what we're looking at is the ultimate club setup. Realistically, I get to use this occasionally. Usually it's not to this extent. This is like the most expensive maxed out version you can get.
What's the difference between these two?
So they're pretty similar. It's the same decks, I think. They're the same. No, actually. So the ones on top of the last generation decks, those ones on the left and right, with the circle in the middle, those are the things that play the music. And then the thing in the middle is called your mixer. And that's where you adjust all the levels of the music. And then the thing above that is called it's a beat machine or an effects machine. Or it's both actually. So it has an extensive amount of effects on it. to create more noise, essentially. A lot of DJing is building tension, so you really maximize those effects to help build that tension, especially in build-ups and drops. And that's kind of what that is for. If you can see in the top picture all the way on the left, there's another version of that. It's a beat machine, that white thing. And then on the bottom, it's a similar setup. You've just got 3 instead of 4. You need 2 of those at minimum because there has to be 2 songs. I prefer 3. No one ever. Only James Hype needs 4. 3 is a good middle ground though for sure. I really like to use the little effects machine on top, but they're pretty rare because Pioneer stopped making them. And I don't know what else you want me to talk about. Like,
No, that was good.
it's the club standard equipment. That's what you use.
How do you handle people trying to lowball you or underpay you?
So payment's a very big thing. DJing. People definitely are under the connotation that DJs make money hand over fist, and it's kind of true. The private gigs, weddings, and birthday parties, and stuff like that, the more unknown stuff is where the money is made. But then for stuff like the club events, like you're not making money. So I do a lot of that, the mobile stuff, like the weddings and the little parties and the frat stuff, because that pays well, and that's able to fund the house music stuff, which is what I prefer to do. Which doesn't make any money until you're really famous and you have your own track. Then it makes a lot of money, but to get there, it costs a lot of money. There's a very large paywall in DJing that people don't understand until they really start to get into it. They just think you buy the board and that's it. But they don't even realize you got to pay for the music technically, unless you're stealing it, like a lot of people do. But yeah. How do I deal with that? I know what I'm worth at this point. But a lot of people also think under the connotation that they're going to be making money hand over fist when they first start out, and they're not. I got lucky by doing mobile DJing in the weddings for early on, but that's not the case for everybody. A lot of the cases is you're going to be DJing for a couple hours, and all you're going to get is like 2 drinks for free and stuff like that. And I still take a lot of gigs like that because I do enough of the silly gigs that I don't like to do, but I do them to make money. And I do those gigs that only pay drinks or whatever, because the promoters are the ones booking for the big clubs too. So once they're like, oh, this kid will show up to do the crappy events, we should put him on the big events, and you should show up to those crappy events and put your best foot forward because people are always watching. And that's kind of another round of how I've gotten into some places that I've done, like the grand opening of that club. Like those are really sought after time slots that a lot of people wanted. And this is another one when I opened up for Medusa at SMU. Fraternity paid for them, and I did the opening for them. And that's just by showing up to those gigs that 3 people are at, and you just put your best foot forward. I can't tell you how many of those do. I do them now. I did like 3 last week. I got like another one this week that I know it's just gonna be completely empty. But it's what I get to play what I like and make some content. So I call it a win, to be honest with you. Nowadays,
Yeah.
it is very hard to make good money in the clubs.
Yeah, and that was going to be our next question. How is it priced? Is it hourly, flat? How's it priced per event?
So there's different ways you can get paid. There's definitely hourly. And the hourly kind of isn't. It's not like per hour almost. So you get paid a lump sum, and then you can make that into the hour. Typically, an event about not a club gig. Those are about you get about $300 to $600 for about 4 hours is usually what it is. So it usually calculates to about $75 to $100 an hour. I'm more at the $100 an hour range now, which is great money. Don't get me wrong. But it's definitely not like I'm not worth it in my opinion. I'm bringing all my equipment, and it's not easy, and you got to know what you got to do. And I'm just like showing random clips now. I show the ones of me. Like that's not even me. That's some other DJ.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question though. Is kind of you being around other DJs. How does that work? Like you get to just go up where they're working and you can chill back there.
Because I'm kind of known in Dallas, at least slightly. Like security knows me, which is enough for me to get
Enough.
into places that I probably shouldn't be. Um,
You
I'm
can
always
chill up there.
networking. Yeah, I always when there's decently famous DJs in town, I'm always networking, going to them, going to their sets, saying hello to them, getting to know them because these people are going to be the people that sign your tracks. When you make that hit track, one of these DJs, famous DJs, has a record label. They all have record labels, and one of them's going to sign you essentially. So it's always good to get out there and show face, in my opinion.
And so networking is a lot more important than people would think.
Yeah, especially in DJing, you can network your way into massive gigs, and you could be the worst DJ ever, and it happens a lot more now than it used to.
You want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure, this Miami set was another interesting one. This video actually blew up. It did about 100,000 views. On TikTok, I believe, probably more at this point. Last time I looked, it was about 100. Yeah, it's not this one, but one of the versions of it. This one we broke into this abandoned Marine stadium in Miami, which I wouldn't recommend doing, but it's very easy, so maybe do it. That's not very dangerous, but this was another video we shot in Miami. I didn't think this video would blow up. I thought it was cool, but apparently people thought it was really cool. It's pretty visually interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Face in the water, it's all that graffiti and stuff. And we made the clip as if, whoa, what's he doing in here type thing. That's how that one came about.
Is that one of your favorites? Location
It's
wise?
definitely one of the, yeah, location wise is one of my favorites for sure. It was definitely a cool spot for sure. A lot of people commented on that. We should throw a party there. And also a lot of people are commenting that they get kicked out of there. And we didn't even see a security guard anywhere. So we honestly thought it was fine. But that was definitely a cool spot for sure that we found. I'm sure there's going to be DJs that start going there next. Kind of like the truck video that I saw. Somebody on Instagram yesterday, the day before, doing the exact same thing I did. And they're just pretending like they didn't they came up with the idea, but
it happens, yep.
That's how
it would be. You want to talk about this and kind of this event, what I was like?
Sure. This was an event that actually I didn't enjoy, to be quite honest with you. This one left me with a pretty bitter taste. It was more of I was still kind of new and didn't really know the ins and outs and how everything worked. This was basically a hustle gig. I got to do this massive event. Obviously, it's the biggest club in New York City, but it really came at the cost of the way they structure this type of venue. The way they structure this style event is they make the DJs do all the work, of which they have to sell all the tickets, and they're competing for who can sell the most tickets, gets the best time slot, and that's a very common approach now in DJing, and it's one that I refuse to do events for because that's not what DJing is. DJs are many things, but I don't think the DJs should be the promoters. I'm very strong against the DJs being the promoters. I think that there's two jobs for a reason. I think it's cool if we can bring our friends or a table, but I shouldn't have to hustle my friends to buy a $20 ticket or $30 tickets. I did take this gig though, because it was such a big venue and it seemed like such a big opportunity that I couldn't say no to. And then I ended up not selling even remotely enough tickets that I thought it was going to, because it was in a city that it was in New York City, which I don't live in, and getting my friends to come out there, either from Dallas or from New York or Westchester, was a difficult thing. So I ended up doing the opening slot, and then all my friends who did come, half of them didn't get in because they told me different information about the security situation than what was true. So I felt really bad for all the people who came and bought tickets and then didn't get in. And then the friends who did get in didn't get in till like 30, 45 minutes into my set because security decided not to open the doors till like 10:30, and I was on at like 10 or something like that, or 11, something of that nature.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel really bad for those people. Some of them flew
Yeah,
up.
Yeah, I had people fly in for that. Um, People take the train in, and take the train is not. Everyone, if people from Westchester know, it's not like a easy feat to just go to the city. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Um,
Feel a lot really out of your way.
yeah, so I felt that.
Okay, well, at least you got good content and pictures from it, and now
Yeah,
you
the
know.
photos definitely were awesome. The videos were okay. I didn't. It was like one of the first attempts I made at shooting a full thing, and it went okay. We improved definitely upon that one for sure.
And what's something you wish you knew before your first gig? So this is for like some advice to new people.
So there's two things. The first is produce. I didn't know this till about 2 years ago when I started producing. All the famous DJs are producers first, essentially. I mean, they're DJs first, obviously, but they're famous for their production. A lot of people don't understand that, and they think you could just become famous from DJing. And we were talking about this earlier, but it's really not true anymore. You have to become a producer, and a pretty big one, and a pretty like significant one to get anywhere seriously with DJ. So not only do I spend a lot of time working on DJing and social media, but the other chunk of time that I'm not doing that stuff, I'm making music. And you're gonna make a lot of garbage tracks before you make one that's even half good. Um, and so I'm still in that making garbage tracks area.
Oh, your mic.
Should be.
There we go.
What happened?
It's back. It was just cutting out. You're good now.
Um, Learning Ableton and the producing is should be its own college. To be honest with you, it's so complicated and hard. And I've been taught by some okayly famous DJs, and I've taken the classes and stuff, and still it's a very, very deep rabbit hole that takes years and years and years of perfection. Um, and there's nothing you can do but just keep working on it. And so that's my big thing. If you want to become a famous DJ, or you want to get booked at wherever you want and do whatever you want, you have to produce and make a good. Basically, you have to make a whole bunch of hit songs. But if you can make one or two, and that'll help get you in the door for sure. But even that's extremely hard. Um, the remix is a good place to start, though. Just take some tracks you like and start remixing them. It's not crazy hard. It's definitely a good place to start, and then you just upload them to SoundCloud, because SoundCloud's like artist paradise in my opinion. There's so much good stuff on there that just has to go up there for so many different reasons. It can't get signed, it's not cleared, all sorts of stuff. Well, a bunch of my tracks are up on SoundCloud, and I love SoundCloud. I'm a big SoundCloud supporter. So that's definitely one piece of advice: is you should start producing as soon as you start DJing. It'll help you learn music a lot too, and make it easier to DJ, because you'll understand phrasing and stuff like that. Um, for learning how to DJ, practice is a big one. You just got to keep practicing. Definitely try and get familiar with club equipment if you can find access to it. A lot of people are like, it's so expensive, and yeah, you can't. I don't suggest going to buy the club standard equipment that we talked about. That was a $20,000 setup right there. But there's Pirate Studios, which is a big one, where you can just rent that kind of equipment for like an hour or two, and it's like $100, something like that. It's nothing substantial, especially to learn how to use that equipment, because it's not simple for sure. Because you definitely don't want to turn up to your first gig and not know how to use the club equipment. That's a terrible look in my opinion. You can also go to the clubs early. I do that a lot. Even I don't even need to practice. I just go to the clubs early because they don't care, and I just mix for the employees because I find it fun. I test out my new tracks. I just see what works and just mess around, because why not? Any excuse to use the club equipment is a good excuse in my opinion. It's so fun because there's so much more you can do than on something like I have. Even though I have a very nice board, it's still there's so much more you can do on those. So that's definitely some advice I'd give to new people.
Any resources like YouTube channels, forums, apps?
Sure. A big one is Crossfader. That's one definitely that you can learn a thing or two from. I was learned from a person, and I think the best way to learn is from a person. So I definitely support hiring someone. There's DJ schools everywhere now too. I don't know if I'd recommend all of them, but they'll definitely teach you the basics. Once you kind of know the basics, I think it's on you to learn the rest. It's not too hard, especially with the internet these days. There's people posting different combinations of music and stuff. So I definitely think that's a good spot to start is Crossfader, or just looking up. There's a local DJ school. I wouldn't recommend buying those DJ courses. It's all on the internet for free technically. And they're honestly not teaching you anything you can't find on the internet, or you can't teach yourself, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't recommend those, but Crossfader's a good one. They do actually sell a course, and theirs is okay. I did purchase the one course I did purchase was James Hype made a course, and I did purchase that one because what he does, if for people who know, it's very different, and it's something really he can only teach, in my opinion. It's very hard to break down what he does because he's moving so fast. So I did buy that course, but that was years ago at this point. I think he's made a new one. And yeah, that's kind of what I would recommend for all of that type of deal.
All the resources. Okay. And then I have some like custom questions. Let me see if I have the right picture here. No, that's the famous DJ.
Sick.
Yeah. So what is Boiler Room? Can you explain that?
Okay, so this video was the most famous video I made. This one did about 1 million views and stirred up a lot of drama on the internet for sure. So John Summit made this tweet about the Boiler Rooms being Boiler Room is a company, but it was also a concept. The concept of Boiler Room when it first started was like literally a boiler room, like you're in a dark basement and they're playing techno music. And the issue is what happened is all these other people are like, why don't we just make our own version? Why do we have to wait to do theirs? The official Boiler Room one. So that's what everyone just started doing, is making their own. So Boiler Room, who's been around for like 10 years now, what they've started to do to keep relevant is they bring in all these sort of celebrities and things that aren't underground DJs, which is what it started as. If you watch the old Boiler Room videos of Solomon and Kind Music and Black Coffee from 10 years ago, that's what it was. It was before anyone was famous, and they were just in these dark basements doing it. I went to the Boiler Room in Dallas because I thought it was going to be kind of what you saw on the internet. I'm a big I Hate Models DJ. He's another famous DJ, and he did a really exceptional Boiler Room, and I thought it was going to be something like that. And I got to it, and it was really not that. It was very disappointing. And John Summit, very famous DJ, was tweeting about the same concept of how the Boiler Room's just trying to make money now, and they don't really care about anyone, and so they'll book anyone to stay relevant. And that's kind of what happened in this video. Is I was able to get behind the DJ, and it turned out this DJ, who is world renowned or something, I don't even know who she was, to be honest with you. It's in the comments of that video, I think. She wasn't even DJing. She was doing what I think is a very big no, which is pre-recorded mix. So all she did was have a mix that was already made, and she just hit play and was standing there and adding sound effects, and I got it all on video. And the crowd was dead. Like, they didn't like it all. And the video really got some serious traction. A lot of famous DJs and famous names on TikTok were commenting on that, kind of agreeing with my opinion. Which is unfortunate, but it is the reality that stuff like this happens a lot. There are a couple videos on my social media that blown up with just me like filming people who weren't mixing. They were just pre-recorded mixes. Yeah, that's kind of what happened with this video. It really did do some numbers. I was kind of shocked how crazy it blew up. There's people who commented, like Daniel Mack, who does like car stuff. He's like on there saying something, and some serious famous DJs were on there too. John Summit liked the video. I don't think he wanted to comment because I don't think he actually wanted to be affiliated with anymore. But definitely a fascinating one to blow up for sure.
And that was gonna be my other question about kind of what myths are about DJing that you want to bust, because I know that a lot of people think it's just you can go up and play something pre-recorded, or most people aren't even playing their own mixes. It's just like you play songs that already exist. A lot of people are just unfamiliar with what DJs actually do.
So DJs they're supposed to play music for the crowd. That's what a DJ was supposed to be years ago, but it's turned into something different. More of like you're supposed to be a celebrity or something, which is I don't like that at all. Myths, the pre-recording thing, that's a big debate. I'm a big proponent for not doing that. You will never really catch me doing that. I don't think I think it's a silly concept for her, especially. She's in a room that's packed to the gills with people. And if anyone would have touched wrong button on the deck that was playing the pre-recorded mix and sent her back to the start, she would have no idea where she was in the middle of that mix, and it would have ruined her whole set. I don't know what else to say about that. Other than I don't support that. There's a lot of DJs now that are just celebrities that have become DJs, and some of them have put a good effort to become DJs, and some of them don't care, and that it's all just fake. And I don't know how long they will stay relevant, but it's definitely a frustrating thing for people who want to grow like myself, and spend a lot of time working on that. So there's a lot of like stuff in the industry that's very tough to deal with, for sure.
And how do you handle song suggestions? And are they annoying?
Yes and no. I don't mind them. One of my bosses hates them, and he'll take like chicks who show him their phone, and he'll take them and like change their phone to like Chinese or something, and start following random people and stuff on their Instagram to like delete apps on their phone. I don't care that much. Usually, I'm just like, give me like some money and I'll play it. I don't care. Especially if it's something that I can't fit in at all. Like I'm gonna be like, yo, you got to throw me some money for sure for me to play this. If
Is it
usually I
different
just
private versus public? Like if it's a private event, then you're okay with that, like a family
private
event.
event, I'm probably playing it, and they're probably giving me money. If it's a public club, like if
Then
it's
you're
a
not.
club, I have what's on my USB, so I either have it or I don't. And if I have it, like I'm like, yo, just like follow me or something. Because it's all about followers these days. So a lot of it's I'm just like, give me a follow, and that's good enough for me. I'm not too
Smart.
picky about it. Even
Yeah,
on my TikTok, when people come in with song requests, I'm just like, yo, don't name me anything. I don't care. Some of the stuff on TikTok's like half a penny.
and
And
so you can only play music that's on the USB, right? If you're
yeah, so when you're DJing at the club and your laptop has everything obviously, but when you're DJing at the club, you're downloading everything on your USBs like this.
you really
So
gotta make
I
sure you have
have
everything.
yes and no. When I'm doing sets like the ones in the club, I usually have somewhat of a set I've built of songs I'm gonna play that night for that set, because I spend a lot of time beforehand on my laptop picking out the stuff I want to play and stuff I think that's gonna work well. And that's kind of how it does. Obviously, I don't have just one playlist with the 12 songs. I've got a good chunk of music on that too, backups, different styles of anything in case stuff goes wrong, and you've got to be able to pivot. And I don't have my laptop with me. When I have my laptop, it's usually off. I'm just going off the seat of my pants and DJing whatever I can find, or whatever I think will work next is fine. I'm not preparing a crazy amount. Obviously, I have the playlist. I know that if the songs that are gonna work and stuff like that. For the clubs, I definitely spend a significant amount of time prepping the sets I'm gonna play and what songs I'm gonna play and kind of what order. Sometimes I don't do crazy amounts of that, but I definitely have a general idea of what I'm definitely gonna play.
And have you played in the international places like Paris, Milan, like the offshore European countries?
Yeah, the European scene is definitely a very cooler scene than the American one, in my opinion. Everyone's like they're extremely different, which they are. I
That's
think
what I was gonna ask.
the European scene is better, in my opinion. People respect it more. Everyone in America doesn't have any respect for house music. It's just who can get the best video. Europe, it's about who. It's about music, and which is something I really enjoy. And I studied abroad. When I did that, I was fortunate enough to be able to DJ at some of the local places, and that was pretty fun. And that was in Switzerland. I didn't get to do any serious out of country venues. It takes a while to get to the out of country venues. It usually progress. You conquer your city, and then you expand to other cities nearby, and then you'll expand to the country, and then you'll expand overseas. Is usually how it goes.
And what's one international gig or location that's on your dream list?
Probably High Ibiza. That's definitely one I want to do. Or Amnesia. They're both in Ibiza. I've been to both. That's the crazy. They're both. There's a reason they're both top 10 clubs. Ibiza being number one, and Amnesia's like 7 or something. They're both crazy. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I hope to go back very soon, but it's a hike to get out to Ibiza for sure. But those are definitely some of the ones on my bucket list. In the country, I'm hoping to do Club Space. That's another one it's on my bucket list. That's a really cool one in Miami. I hope to do that sooner rather than later. But definitely gonna take a little bit of time for that one, sure. Hopefully, like next year, I'm hoping. See though.
Okay. Is it a common trend for DJs to try to play in weird locations, or is it just something that you like doing, like the pools, the trucks, the rooftops?
Kinda. I think a lot of DJs who shoot, especially famous ones who shoot recorded sets, try and pick these wild-looking locations. You go to David Guetta or Martin Garrix, I think one of the two of them did it. They were on the side of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. That is that really 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 big building. They like did it on the side of it. Kind Music's another great example. They do crazy stuff in front of. They did this crazy set in front of the pyramids. Um, Coachella or not Coachella. Burning Man. That's another crazy place. It's in the middle of the desert. So I try and pick crazy sets that haven't been done yet. And stuff that stands out. My view on recording sets is it's got to be visually appealing, or there's got to be people. There's no way to do without one of the two, in my opinion. So the truck video, or it's just entertaining, like the truck video. But then some of the other videos, like that one, or like the sunset ones, or sunrise or sunset in the pools, it's goofy, and I think it's all just attempts at making clips go viral, and that's all that's really all about, in my opinion. With the
Everything's but
social media,
farming.
it's all about
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about what you can clip and what you can make go viral.
Okay, so how did you kind of adjust your music style depending on the country or city, or comparing like frat parties to clubs in Europe?
You definitely have to adjust your music style for the frat stuff or some of the club stuff. The club stuff, I definitely try and in the very little time slots I get, because everybody likes to do 1 hour time slots, which I don't love, but that's kind of what it is in America. In Europe, it's like it's very much longer, at least 2 hours usually. And that's when you're able to take people on like some sort of musical journey, and I really enjoy doing that. Here, it's just can you play the top 40 remixes, which is what I do. It's just like Starships and Rihanna and stuff like that. But in the house music, I definitely every time I play a house club venue, I'm trying to make some sort of artistic musical journey. But sometimes it works better than others, and it's always up to if the crowd is receptive to it, and that's always a big one.
If you could headline one major festival right now, what would it be, and what would your set look like for it?
Probably Tomorrowland. That's definitely on the bucket list too. There's some big ones like EDC and Ultra in the U.S. and Coachella. But Tomorrowland's definitely main stage would be a dream for sure. It's such a massive stage, and it's insane to watch on YouTube. I wish I could see it even in person. And the style of music would be whatever my style is. I don't know if you can put a name on what my style is. It's definitely in the tech house genre, but I kind of jump around between all the different house genres, and I think that's a kind of unique approach that a lot of people don't do, is bouncing around from a lot of different genres. And I think it's kind of cool the way I do it. So I'd probably just play what I love, and that's kind of what I usually do, is play what I love and share that's my big thing with DJing, is being able to share music I love with others, and that's kind of why I do it in general. That's what I continue to work for, if that makes sense.
And do you see DJing as like a brand now, with like merch partnerships, expansions, and a bunch of other things that you
It's
can't?
definitely an untapped. Honestly, it's an untapped market. There aren't
So
crazy partnerships. DJs don't do partnerships really. The
Shocked.
most recent one I saw was Kind Music. Rampa, one of the DJs who's a member of Kind Music, which is a group of 3 DJs. He did a collab with Chrome Hearts, which is one I wanted to do, but I'm not famous enough to even remotely get Chrome Hearts to even look at me. But he just did a custom Chrome Hearts headphones, which they look crazy, and he did the whole outfit with them, and it's one I was definitely eyeing at, I knew would come out insane, and which it did. But brand deals is definitely a thing that doesn't really happen in the DJing world. I don't know why, um, at all, to be honest with you. Merchandise, a lot of the DJs have merchandise nowadays. I haven't made it yet because I don't think I'm significant enough, and when I make it, I want it to look cool. I don't want just like my name on on a T-shirt. So I want to have designs and stuff. Like Hellbent, Clooney's brand, he does a good job at that. They make like a whole drop with a ton of stuff. Fine Music is another one who does a good job at that with the making different types of merch. So I have one of their pieces, and it's pretty cool.
This copyright issue is a huge thing because I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that's a really big issue, actually. I face it a lot. TikTok, no. For some reason, there are no copyright rules on TikTok. I don't know
never
why.
understood that. Yeah.
I don't understand how they get away with it, but then everybody else doesn't, especially Meta and YouTube. A lot of my YouTube videos, almost all of them, have copyright warnings on them, which means you can't play them in certain countries.
Countries, yeah. YouTube's the worst at that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Everything.
But we love YouTube. But anyways, I definitely have. There's some songs I have to just cut out of the YouTube videos completely, which I don't think is fair at all. I think
Sucks.
if you're a DJ, playing a song is definitely, in my opinion, under fair use clause. I don't understand how it's not, to be quite honest with you. But YouTube doesn't see it that way. So there's chunks of my set I have to cut out of just songs I gotta chop out of the set. I don't know what else to do. I already recorded the whole thing. Thankfully, it's none of the ones I really care about that I've had to deal with. But copyright's definitely an issue. I've had videos. I've had 1 or 2 videos be taken down on TikTok for sure, for copyright. I don't like random songs too. Like one of the ones for the Sunrise one, like a random house track that wasn't allowed to be posted. I don't know why. It's just basically noises too. But copyright is definitely an issue, and I don't know how you solve that, especially when making remixes. That's another section of copyright you get to deal with, which is always a blast. When you're making remixes, a lot of times you're risking it being taken down because you are technically stealing, even though you're really not, in my opinion. But you have to do a lot to modify the track and the vocals usually, which is what you're usually remixing from a pretty famous rap track. Is what usually happens right now is a lot of people take rap songs and they remix them. I did one. I remixed No Role Models by J. Cole, and I had to pitch up his voice another octave so it wouldn't classify under that.
Yeah.
You do that. I do that. You do that in a lot of remixes you'll make. You'll just pitch bend them is what it's calling. It's where you'll make it like a higher pitch or voice tone, I guess is the best way to explain it. And that's kind of how you get around that, because getting it cleared by serious label companies is next to impossible, and that's why you don't see a lot of official remixes. There are some that have come out. I think It's Murph was the most recent one. I don't know if he actually got it cleared. I think he did. He remixed My Love by Justin Timberlake, I want to believe, wrote that song originally, and he got it cleared, which means the record label was like, yeah, we like the song, and Justin Timberlake was like, yeah, I like the remix. We'll allow you to post this, and I think they can monetize. There's some monetization there, but I don't really care about making money off the music. That's just more of a stepping stone for what I want to do. But
and that's my next question. What can you explain this video talking about, like turning down gigs and not caring really as much about?
So yeah, we can talk about this for sure. A lot of people, there are serious DJs on the internet who will tell you to turn down gigs.
What is it, ego?
I don't know if it's ego or if it's just they think that you have to turn down gigs because some gigs are just not worth it, and I disagree. The more I do a lot of gigs though, the more I understand where they're coming from for sure. It's definitely hard to get a lot of your friends to come to every single one of your gigs if you're doing 3 gigs a week. Um, so I understand that, but I don't think you're gonna become a serious DJ by doing 1 gig a month, or maybe there is that school of thought. A lot of people have the school of thought that you should do 1 gig a month, and the rest of that time you should be spent on making music.
Interesting, yeah.
I do both. That's my solution to it. I do because I love the DJing, much more than I love the producing. Um, so I prefer to do the 3-4 gigs a week because it helps pay for everything too. At least some of them, and then I produce on top of that, and then I go to school.
And is this the board you showed at the beginning?
That's currently the board my laptop is sitting on top of. That's my board. As you can see, it kind of looks similar to the one that we talked about earlier.
What's the event?
This event was that was the board I started on. You can see they're slightly different.
Yeah.
Different colors for this. This was a Broadway rave I did. Definitely one of the more interesting gigs I've done. As for the crowd, but the pay was good, and it was a Live Nation event. And anyone in the industry knows, if you have an in with Live Nation, they're good because Live Nation controls every event ever.
Yeah.
So that's what this one was.
Have you done silent discos? I've heard of those.
The silent disco, I've not done them. I usually turn them down because there's always a lot of drama that comes with them, in my opinion. The most recent silent disco I was offered was for Breakaway Festival, which is this festival that travels around the country. And they were offering silent disco to the local DJs if you could sell tickets, like we talked about earlier. That whole
Marketing thing.
game where you sell tickets. And the issue I had with this event was you weren't selling $20 tickets, you were selling $150 festival weekend passes to your friends, basically, or I guess if you had a fan base like that in Dallas. Sure. I don't know many local DJs that have one like that, in my opinion, especially when you're starting out. It takes a while to get people to seriously just start buying tickets for you, and what it usually requires is you making a hit song, and people want to come see it. You perform it live, usually. So I don't do the silent discos. Also, when you're doing silent discos, there's usually multiple DJs on stage, so you don't even know who's listening to you.
You want to talk about that? What is it? Going one for one. What did you call
B2B.
it?
We can talk about B2B. Some people love it. I don't prefer it.
Want to explain it first?
So going B2B means essentially you go back to back with another DJ. So you play a song or you play 2 songs, and then another DJ will play 2 songs, and you'll play together. And sometimes it's great if you're like famous, in my opinion. The most recent one I've seen that was pretty good was Solomon did a B2B with Dom Dalla, and those 2 names are some of the biggest names in DJing ever, especially Solomon. So when you do a B2B like that, it's awesome to watch because it's 2 great DJs and minds playing songs off each other. But what happens now is that idea gets muddled into what it is, which is usually the clubs trying to make more money. So what they do is they have 2 smaller DJs, someone like myself, go B2B with another smaller DJ.
So like this?
Because then... No, that's Kind Music. That's a whole different thing. That's the group of 3.
Those 2 guys with headphones aren't... Wait, who's the actual DJ? The guy with the beanie or the guy with the headphones?
The guy with the white and the sunglasses, the black, and the other guy in the white. All 3 of them are DJs. So they do a B3B, essentially. They rotate. They each play a song in loop, but they do something completely different than anybody else. They're a group, so they stay together.
It's like a band? Oh, okay.
No, but they're DJs. They're seriously famous. You should watch some of their sets.
They only travel together?
Yes, it's a no. So their group together is called Kind Music. But then each of them does do their own DJing on their own, if that makes sense. So they will do these events, which are kind music events, but each DJ, the guy on the left is Adam Port, the guy in the middle is Rampa, who I was talking about, who did the Chrome Hearts collab, and the guy on the right is and me, and the three of them do sets on their own, because each of them have made music on their own as well as with kind music. They've been doing it for about 10 years now too, and
Wow.
they do After House, and they're the ones I was talking about who did the video in front of the pyramids. It's a crazy video. Watch, and it did very well. Where was I going with this? So B2Bing. So this is not B2Bing. This is, I mean, it technically is, but this is a group. Usually what the B2Bs is two different DJs playing a song one after another. What the clubs now do is they use it to their advantage, so they're able to get two smaller DJs in. So they're pulling from two different crowds, and they only have to use a one hour time slot because they're both DJing at the same time, technically. Of which I don't love that concept, because I think when you're going B2B with somebody, when you're playing, no one knows whose music's actually playing, and no one's paying attention if you're going to B2B and you're in a club. No one's going to be like, that's his track specifically. It seems like it's one of their two tracks. So I guess you could still get a fan from that, but I think the fan retention rate is much harder with going B2B. So I prefer to stay away from doing it. If I'm gonna get a serious gig though, and they're like, "Yo, you gotta go B2B," what I'm gonna say, no. But I try not to, in my opinion. If that answers that.
Yeah. I mean, we're about over an hour, so I guess just last two things. Where can they find you, and any last motivation or tips for kids wanting to start out?
You can find me anywhere. It's at DJ Day Off everywhere. The link tree's in the chat. Yeah, it's pretty easy to find me. My handles are the same everywhere. Last motivation, produce. It takes a lot. It's a lot of grinding, and people don't understand how much grinding it is until you really get into it. I've been doing this for years now at this point, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. So you got to just keep your head down and keep, at least I at the very minimum, I post every single day without fail on something. You can always find content. The other concept of shoot anything, I don't believe in. A lot of DJs say just post whatever. That's not necessarily true. I try and post a video of quality and that has potential to blow up every day. I don't just post like me like talking to the camera. I don't think posting junk works. I think there's definitely caveats when people say post every day. I think if you can post quality every day, post quality every day, and that's what I try and do. But yeah, that's kind of what I would say is, if you want to do this seriously, learn how to produce. Spend a lot of time doing that, and you have to keep working. There are no DJs that blow up overnight anymore. I mean, there are, but you have to make a hit song, and to make the hit song, it takes years of practice of producing. So that's kind of the reality of what DJing is now. Me and a lot of DJs wish it was different. Yeah, but that's just kind of how it is. And
don't people usually die out after, like, do the one-hit wonders usually stay, or is it very hard to continue?
So there are some one-hit wonders who have been able to stay relevant, but they do fall off eventually without making more music, and it's definitely a big struggle in the industry, is being able to just keep making that huge music. And John Summit, a seriously famous DJ, talks about this a lot, is they're always constantly worried if the next song they're going to put out is going to do numbers. And that's why you blow up when you blow up usually, because you've put in that time, so now you've made the hit, so you technically have the capability to make another. And that's kind of how that works.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was not expecting that the scene to change that much, because those guys who've been doing it for 10 years, those guys look like they're 25. You're telling me they've been doing it for the three guys, whatever their names were.
I've been doing it for 10 years. There's this video of them doing sets from 10 years ago. Those three guys have been doing DJing for 10 years, and there's footage of it from them.
How old are they?
Years ago, and in the 30s somewhere.
Okay, wow. Yeah, and what's kind of that? Okay, that one last question. So, what's the kind of opinion on younger kid DJs coming in? Are you like usually just pushed aside and disregarded, and it's just the older veterans kind of run the scene?
Yeah, that doesn't really happen anymore.
That's good.
Also, technically I am a veteran, even though I'm 21. I have been DJing for 5 years at this point, so I definitely have the experience. Um,
But not production wise.
not production wise, that's a whole nothing. I don't think people, as long as you're over 18 nowadays or over 21 in America, they not gonna count you out because you're young. Usually they like the younger people because younger people attract more younger people,
Yeah.
which always are good for Leo and stuff, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think, yeah.
That's good. Okay. Yeah. So that's gonna do it. Thank you for coming out to the show and for your time. His links will be posted, and we'll get the VOD up on YouTube as well. And yeah. Any last words?
No, thank you for having me. This was really fun to do.
All right. I'm gonna go to the end stream screen, and I'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye. Thank you again. Thanks. W's in the chat for him, guys. All right. So that's gonna do it for our second episode. If you guys missed the first one, there's a VOD up on our YouTube, same as the Twitch Starteryou. And basically, what's next is we have a couple other guests that I'm speaking to. I've been extremely busy recently. Like the stream was supposed to be this weekend, but I had to push it back. So I got to figure out what to do next because it's kind of hard trying to run this company and also find guests and find times to stream because this takes like almost 2 hours out of my day, which is a lot. You couldn't tell, but I'll try to find some other people. I also want to do some other different types of streams where it's not just guest speakers, obviously. So if you have some ideas, throw them down in the Discord. There's a channel for stream ideas. So if you think of any stream ideas, I'm pretty open to it. I used to stream normally, and I did a bunch of crazy stuff. So this is obviously supposed to be the company channel, but I'm pretty lenient when it comes to different ideas we can do.